F123 is drawing closer. We had a first teaser and even a Steam page already, which is both exciting and frightening. Because of what many would call a rather lackluster F122, the hopes and dreams of the fan base may rely on these 5 things to make it all better this time. Maybe it's on an old fan favorite to save the day. And with that, welcome back to Overtake. It is time for the silly season of the F1 game life cycle. The old one isn't even cold yet, but we progressively get hints that make us more and more excited about the new one. And with F123, EA has the opportunity to really score some valuable points in their pursuit to recapture the fanbase of the F1 games. Our number one thing that would make F123 unforgettable was already mapped out by other devs last year. The implementation of more management features could be a giant step forward for the series as a whole. In 2022, arguably the biggest noise in the F1 gaming sphere was created by F1 Manager. After the initial trailers and gameplay reveals, it felt like the hype was endless, even though we now know that the end result didn't quite hit the target. EA's ears should be perky after the initial success of F1 Manager though. And your ears should perk up right now as well, when I suggest you hit the like button, subscribe and tap that bell so you are on target to witness the best sim racing videos on this planet. But back to our F123 wishlist. The trend clearly indicates that F1 players enjoy having a lot of power over the happenings inside and outside the garage. So the simple solution would be to just follow the traces and add to what's already in the game. My team already features functions like R&D tree and allocation of certain funds. While it's cool that these things already exist, the super basic nature of them kind of misses the purpose. If you want management options in-game, make them plenty and meaningful. A deeper involvement of stats and more ways to influence development or even design would be bonkers for the game. Having said that, I believe not everyone is looking to have the perfect immersive team boss experience on F1. So making these things optional could certainly work. But even having them featured would be a boost to the playability and longevity of the title. Speaking of longevity, one thing I sincerely hope for F123 is an overhaul to the online competition. Something I always remember when talking about the F1 online modes is how nobody is talking about the success they have in it. I don't know anyone that would come to me and be like, hey, I reached gold in F1. The same way they would boast about their iRating, for example. And quite frankly, there's one major reason for it. The current online ranking system of the F1 games is far from good, to be polite. Weird down ranks after one race can be followed by random up ranks after mediocre results. There is no clear progression towards a goal, and quite frankly, it doesn't really seem like there's an interest to create one, which is mighty sad considering the F1 driver base could be a force to be reckoned with in the online racing community. But of course, some other topics need to be addressed too here. The abysmal connection issues that still plague the long antiquated host conundrum, and the tendency for drivers to, well, turn into battering rams halfway through a botched turn 1.
I got damage, Oh.
Having a designated server structure and more customizable racing is probably the first step. Maybe even put classifications in there that prohibit dirty or plainly bad drivers from participating in ranked altogether, until they put in some work in unranked. Of course, then it would mean that the penalty system probably needs overhauling as well, which I think is a bit much to ask. But one can dream. One thing is for sure, if F123 has a new way to enjoy racing online, it could be for the better of the game. Just like our number 3. Coming in at our number 3 is a continuous wish I keep telling the creators of the F1 games. Scratch the unnecessary game modes, eye candy and experiments that nobody is looking to have in the game. And yes, I'm specifically looking at you supercars. Over the past years, a trend has formed, and I'm not completely sure why. F1 games keep adding to the core of the game, tedious and straight weird features that eat up valuable dev time in the end. As core gameplay elements, I consider single player with career and Grand Prix and so on, my team where you can create something, and an online multiplayer. A pretty solid lineup considering everything is licensed. But apparently not enough. We have memed excessively about F1 Live and the supercar editions last year. But for real, why were they ever in this series? When other elements of the game are not perfect by any means. I haven't found a single person that shared their F1 Live living area with me, or told me they were glad that this was added to the game. Retrospectively, there are probably a lot of reasons for the existence of such modes, I guess. I would bet good money that the integration of supercars was paid by the participating teams of the F1 Championship. You know, to make the game more profitable. Still doesn't really make the feature better. The same, of course, goes for the F1 Live mode. A lot better than what was offered in F1 22 would have been to have racing-specific modulations to your virtual living room. Pictures of your favorite era of F1 or model cars. If you really want this feature to be in the game, maybe these are the kinds of things you should add. So for this year, I really hope they focus a little bit more on the identity and the racing. I mean, there have been talks of a new in-game engine, right? Wouldn't that be something? For number 4, we really need to put our thinking hats on for a second. After seeing the F1 23 teaser on Twitter, some people have speculated what the subtitle "New Year, Fresh Start" could mean. A lot of talk has been focused on possibly a new game engine to bless this year's title, which may hide behind this cryptic message. While the thought alone is comforting, it may be a necessity at this point. More and more voices have come forward last year and criticized the way F1 currently feels, and how some things just don't make sense at all. A complaint we have all heard at least once, maybe even felt ourselves, is the insane oversteer F1 games feature. It makes it really hard to tackle curbs like real-life races would. Something like a new engine could make room for a tad bit of more drivability here. With EA, the franchise has one of the biggest publishers ever on board, that so happens to have a lot of experience with game engines as well. The Frostbite engine comes to mind immediately. I know there were a lot of talks of this happening last year, but I really feel like the signs are pointing towards an implementation this time. The Frostbite engine long isn't only used for Battlefield anymore. With games like Need for Speed, they already dabbled into racing with it, thus making it a perfect fit to slap onto F1. Many argue that the feeling of the F1 games is keeping it from being successful. While I think it's a bit much to say that, having a positive development in this direction could be a silver lining in terms of gameplay. In terms of content, something else could be. F1 23 could be something truly special. In order for that to happen though, the implementation of our number 5 would be paramount. The inclusion of legacy content, such as tracks, cars and drivers, to a large degree would be the absolute optimum. Why do you think videos of someone driving a Ferrari from 2004 in some other sim are so widely popular? Because a lot of the F1 players still have memories of that time in the back of their head. Hearing howling engines and feeling raw power may be the perfect balance for the F1 games. And I know what many of you will say. There was legacy content in the F1 games already, and it wasn't so popular. Which is correct, but the implementation was also horrible. Hiding these gems in the depths of the single-player menu and expecting them to somehow pop up and burst onto the scene will never happen. What we need is a concept to them. What speaks against having a whole lineup of cars from 1999, for example? Have the option to drive them in a whole season, with the tracks of the time. Some are still in the game, and would most likely just need visual adjustments. If licensing is a problem, I wonder how MotoGP managed to have the 09 mode in their game then. This mode was far from authentic, but insanely cool to see. Something like this would make an impact for F1 23, which is quite frankly hard to measure. I realize a lot of this is just wishful thinking, and maybe I just want to drive Hockenheim on F1 again. But aside from everything, it would be one of the coolest features ever. If you found anything in particular that you want to discuss, then putting that into the comments below may be the best course of action. In this video here, we recently talked about some problems with the F1 game lifecycle. Go check that one out if you want. Thank you all for watching. And until next time, cheerio.